You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/Libsyn. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts, there is a photograph taken somewhere in the Pacific in 1944. A sailor is sitting on the ground, knees pulled up, head tilted back, and laughing. Not the polite posed laugh of a publicity shot, but a real one. The kind that comes from somewhere deep within. The kind that for a moment makes you forget where you are and what tomorrow might bring. On the stage in front of him is Bob Hope, mid-joke, one hand raised. That photograph, or one very much like it, was taken thousands of times in thousands of places across 8 decades of American military history. It is, in many ways, the picture of our topic today, the USO. Today's History Brief looks at some recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
This day in history. On March 30th, 1867, the United States reached an agreement with Russia to purchase Alaska for $7.2 million. A deal negotiated by Secretary of State William H. Seward. Initially mocked as Seward's folly, the acquisition would later prove rich in natural resources and strategic value. On March 30th, 1981, President Ronald Reagan survived an assassination attempt outside a Washington, D.C. hotel. Though seriously wounded, Reagan's quick recovery and public composure bolstered his image and presidency. Story of the day. The USO was founded in February of 1941. The United States was not yet at war. Pearl Harbor was still 10 months away. But the draft was already underway, and military bases were filling with young men who had been pulled from their homes, their families, and everything familiar. President Franklin Roosevelt had a simple idea. Rather than have the government run morale and entertainment programs directly, he asked 6 private organizations, the Salvation Army, the YMCA, and the YWCA, the National Catholic Community Service, the National Travelers Aid Association, and the National Jewish Welfare Board, to pool their resources and do it together. The result was the USO. Its mandate was very straightforward. Provide a home away from home for American service members. What that looked like in practice would turn out to be one of the great improvised institutions of the 20th century. Within months of its founding, the USO had set up hundreds of clubs near military bases across the country. places where soldiers could get a cup of coffee, write a letter home, listen to music, or simply sit somewhere that didn't feel like the barracks. But it was the camp shows division, the traveling entertainment program that would define the USO's public identity. That would define the USO's public identity for generations. The first United Service Organization camp, or the USO camp show, went out in the fall of 1941. By the peak of World War II, the USO was running more than 700 performers on tour at any given time. The roster reads like the golden age of American entertainment. Marlene Dietrich, who spent years traveling to the front lines in Europe, and later said those tours were among the most important things she ever did. Jimmy Durant, Bing Crosby, the Andrews Sisters, whose recording of Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy became an anthem of the era partly because soldiers heard them perform it live first. And of course, there was Bob Hope. Hope did his first USO tour in 1942 and would not stop for 50 years. The moment that soldiers remembered were rarely the grandest ones. They were actually the small ones. Marlene Dietrich, in her memoirs, described stopping after shows to sit with wounded men in field hospitals, not performing, just talking. She learned to play the musical saw so that she learned to play the musical saw so she'd have something intimate to offer in the quiet moments between the big productions. Jimmy Cagney reportedly spent hours after his shows signing autographs, shaking hands, listening to men talk about their families back home. The Andrews sisters received so many letters from soldiers that they employed a full time staff just to respond to them. These were not contractual obligations of who these were not contractual obligations of people who at the time were humongous stars. They were the human texture of what the USO actually was. Not a show business operation, but a sustained act of connection between a country and the people that it had sent to war. Korea brought the USO into a different kind of conflict. Smaller, less covered, fought in brutal cold rather than the tropical heat. Marilyn Monroe's 1954 tour of Korea has become one of the most iconic moments in USO history, though it came technically after the armistice. She performed 10 shows in 4 days for a combined audience estimated at over 100,000 troops. She later told her husband, Joe DiMaggio, it was the most fulfilling experience of her life. DiMaggio, by most accounts, was not pleased to hear it. But for the men who were there, standing in the freezing cold on a Korean hillside watching Marilyn Monroe sing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, it was, by every account, utterly surreal and completely unforgettable. One veteran described it decades later as the moment that he understood, for the first time, that people back home actually knew that he existed. Vietnam complicated the USO story, as well, it complicated everything else. The anti war movement created a cultural environment in which some performers were reluctant to participate, associating USO tours with endorsement of a war that they opposed. Others went anyway. Anne Margaret made multiple trips, developing a reputation for staying after shows to spend time with wounded soldiers in hospitals. Martha Ray, less celebrated today than she deserves, made so many trips to Vietnam that the Special Forces eventually gave her an honorary Green Beret. She was in her 50s, and she went anyway, every single year. The USO adopted through the 1970s and the 1980s, a leaner operation during the all volunteer military era, but still a persistent one. When the Gulf War began in 1990, the organization mobilized very quickly. Jay Leno, Brooke Shields, and others performed for troops in Saudi Arabia within months of the deployment. The template, 80 years on, remained essentially unchanged. Get there, show up, make them laugh, and make them feel remembered. Today, the USO operates in more than 50 countries, running programs that have expanded well beyond live entertainment. supporting military families, providing transition assistance to veterans, staffing airport lounges where service members in transit can rest, eat, and call home. The History Brief. Today on History News, we're heading deep into a forest in modern day Poland, where archaeologists have uncovered the remains of a lost medieval city, one that seems to have simply, well, disappeared. The settlement, known as Stolzenberg, is believed to have been founded sometime in the late 13th or early 14th century, during a period of rapid urban expansion across medieval Europe. But by the 16th century, it was already gone, abandoned under circumstances that still puzzle researchers today. What makes this discovery so remarkable is how well the city's layout has survived. Using geophysical surveys, archaeologists identified a classic medieval town plan, buildings arranged around a central market square surrounded by defensive features and a moat. In a ghost city, preserved beneath the forest floor like a time capsule. Excavations have already uncovered more than 400 artifacts, including coins, tools, belt fittings, and everyday objects that once belonged to the town's residents. These finds confirm that Stolzenberg was not just planned, but actively lived in, at least for a time. And yet, something somewhere went wrong. Researchers still don't know exactly what and why the town was actually abandoned. There are several theories, however. It could have been devastated by plague, famine, or war. Border conflicts in this region, long contested between powers, may have made life there unstable. Or, more surprisingly, the town may have simply been relocated, as medieval communities sometimes moved to more favorable locations. Another clue lies in what wasn't built. Archaeologists have found evidence that parts of the planned town were never fully developed, suggesting that Stolzenberg may have collapsed early, before it ever reached its full potential. In other words, this may not just be a lost city, but actually a failed one. And that's what makes it so valuable. Most medieval cities evolved over centuries, constantly changing, but Stolzenberg appears to have been frozen in time, offering historians a rare snapshot of how towns were planned, built, and sometimes abandoned. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping to make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying the show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. I also hope you guys check out the new YouTube channel, where I have recently been posting a new series called 25 Events That Made America. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn ads.com today.